People say we're living in the information age, and with so much information coming from so many sources, getting our students to appreciate literature presents a special challenge. For the past 6 years, a group of teachers and researchers have been developing a program that meets this challenge. It gets students excited about reading, and it's called the Book Club.
Book Club really was designed to create an environment where meaningful talk about text could actually happen. And to do that, what we've done is created a curriculum that involves 4 components. All the components are centered around the main component called Book Club. That's where the program got its name. And book clubs are small groups of 4 to 6 children who have all read the same book and are given a chance to talk for anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes about what they had read that day. In order to be able to have a meaningful conversations, the other components support that. So obviously reading is an important part. Students read every day. It helps for children to be able to reflect on what they've read before they sit down to have a conversation. So the second component that supports the book club is writing. The third component is important. It's called community share, and it's the idea that students are a part of a whole community within their class. So while they may be in small book clubs for some discussion of the books, there's also a point in time when the teacher wants to bring the group back together as a whole for discussion, sharing what each other had talked about in their small groups, or to maybe set the stage for a small group discussion. So reading, writing, book club, and community share become the 4 main components that are part of the book club curriculum. And then instruction is embedded within each of those components.
The first step in Book Club is to get your students to read well-written, thought-provoking books.
The reading component involves reading itself, the actual reading of text every day. Children read silently, they can read in pairs. They sometimes will read along as the teacher reads aloud.
When I read aloud, I'm trying to model fluency for the children so that when they read aloud with a partner, they can practice that same fluency. I like them to hear what language sounds like, especially some of the books that we read that have different dialects or accents, and let them hear the beauty of the language.
If you take the reader who struggles in school, who really has trouble with comprehending, most of their experiences involve a lot of time spent on sub-skills, really pushing the kids to develop the skills they would need to read. But what happens in effect then is that they never have the chance to actually read and get involved in connected text at their age level as opposed to reading level. What Book Club does for children like that is, because there's a number of different ways to access the information in the books, the students who are struggling to read that might normally not have a chance to ever see why they even would want to learn to read can be involved in talking about and writing about and thinking about ideas and issues in books that are much more the kind of books that their same age peers would be reading. For students who are reading at grade level or above, who don't face that struggle, the contrast between reading a book because the teacher is assigned a section and is going to be answering questions versus reading a book that they've had some voice in selecting and that is filled with controversial issues or interesting topics or deals with issues that they deal with in their own lives is far more inherently interesting, in the same way that as adult readers, we rarely would want to sit down and read a book simply to answer questions. We read books because they're interesting, or they show us something about our own lives, or they take us to places we might not ever be able to go to otherwise. So it serves a motivation in both of those ways.
So far we've been reading Hatchet by Gary Paulson, Charlie Skedaddle by Patricia Beatty, and right now we're reading Mississippi Bridge, and I can't remember the author. But out of all of them, I mostly like all of them.
I think the literature selection is one of the most crucial parts of Book Club. You need to have a book that is not only interesting and appropriate for the grade level of the students, but more importantly, it has to be something that can be talked about. There has to be some potential for discussion there, some controversial issue. It has to tie to some part of your curriculum, whether it's science or social studies or something else that you're studying thematically. There has to be connections available for the kids to make.
The books need to be good literature, they need to be well written. I also choose books that have a lot of issues that the students need to deal with within their own life: poverty, racial issues, divorce, family. It needs to be controversial, and it needs to be something that will generate a great deal of discussion. The fluffy little bunny jumped over the field. There's just not much to talk about with that type of a book, but if you have a book dealing with real-life issues, it's much easier to talk about those books.
Writing also plays an important role in book club. As students read, they record their ideas and questions in a reading log. Later, these reading logs provide a springboard for discussions.
The reading log is one way in which children use writing as a way to connect with the ideas from their reading.
The kinds of things that you might see in the reading log vary depending on the time of the year, actually. At the beginning of the year, I see a lot of kids doing predictions and pictures, a lot of summaries or retellings. Questioning is something that kids do almost all year long, continue to write questions to ask each other. We talk about personal responses and feelings and how to relate the text to your life, how to connect it to other books you've read. Kids will also do comprehension things like sequencing, drawing conclusions, comparing and contrasting. We also talk about evaluating the text as we get to the middle of the year, and kids learn how to critique the text or evaluate it, make some judgments based on why the author may have written that story or what the author does especially well.
So their log it's a thinking tool to help them in their discussions.
When you write your log, you have to read out of your log and tell other people, make comments with other people's songs and answer and ask questions so that we can understand the story more. If you feel sad or happy about something, you write that down under feelings.
Yeah, like he's saying, there's different things you can do. Feelings, you can ask questions, there's stuff you want to know. You can compare and contrast. They're all just different responses that you do to make talk with your group.
Working in small student-led discussion groups, students learn to share their ideas and their responses to the literature.
Everything that happens in book club is to lean toward those student-led discussion groups.
I think that's the part that makes book club really special and unique, is that the kids get to talk about the books in a small group setting that they lead, and then in a larger setting with the whole class in which a community of readers share about the story.